Aquaman is about to, or has passed already, the $1 billion mark at the worldwide box office, making it the highest grossing DCEU film, beating out Wonder Woman. That's pretty crazy when you think about it, considering the last film within the DCEU was Justice League, the lowest grossing film within this franchise. This makes Aquaman a very surprising hit, especially since audience and critical reception was so low from the previous DCEU entry. Compared with Marvel, only 3 films in the MCU have ever crossed the $1 billion mark, being Iron Man 3, Black Panther, and Captain America Civil War. And when you dissect this even more, it's impressive when you think Iron Man 3 and Captain America Civil War were sequels, with Civil War also being basically an Avengers film, meaning Black Panther was the only real solo film within these 3. I think Aquaman is a huge lesson for DCEU on how to make successful films, and in this video I just kind of want to look through how did Aquaman manage to cross the magical $1 billion mark. I think there's a few reasons that Aquaman managed this milestone, so let's just jump in. A big part of Aquaman's success came from the huge box office from China, and as of 6th of January, standing at $282 million, making it by far the best DC film in China and the second highest growing superhero film ever in China, being only behind Infinity War. The film hugely benefited from an early release date of 7th December. It's rare for China to get big Hollywood films early, so this contributed a lot to the buzz for Chinese audiences to see a big production weeks before anyone else in the world. James Wan's Chinese heritage of course played a part in the buzz in China surrounding Aquaman. Firstly, being of Chinese descent definitely helps the film, and Chinese audiences are interested in a Chinese director making big Hollywood films. But he has also had huge success in China, with Fast and Furious 7 raking in $290 million in the Chinese box office. Capitalising on the excitement, Warner Brothers gave it a big press push with director James Wan and stars Jason Momoa and Amber Heard in attendance. And also lastly, China's biggest film is a film called Mermaid set underwater. Now I don't know if this had a part to play in it, as I know Aquaman's a completely different story, but it has a similar aquatic theme and an aquatic world, so that may have played a part in the actual film's huge box office success. This is Jason Momoa's second outing as Aquaman, and although his character received mixed reviews in Justice League, and I was a big critic of his character, Momoa's performance was never criticised. Critics and audiences agreed Momoa needed a good script and something interesting could have been done with Aquaman. Jason Momoa, although not a household name, he is incredibly charismatic. He gives fun press appearances, and he's very active on social media, and audiences like him quite a lot. He has a lot of charm and personality which audiences do really love. This is something Marvel has done very well, casting very charismatic people in their roles, such as Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans and Chris Pratt. This is what gets audiences into the cinema, seeing actors be funny and charming, and people become interested. Thanks in large to his various appearances, Momoa has been able to ride out the Justice League negativity and show that he genuinely appears to be having a great time being in this film. This makes me think perhaps the film would be good. If the actors are having such a great time, maybe the film's great. And I am more buzzed at seeing this film than going to see Batman vs Superman with Sad Affleck being passed around.
Oh friend, I've come to talk with you again.
This can make or break a film. It broke Solo, it made Aquaman. Releasing in early December, Aquaman had virtually zero competition. December being now a huge time to go to the cinema, and audiences want to see a film around Christmas time with their families. Aquaman positioned itself perfectly, able to generate some early December buzz in China and various other regions, and releasing nearer to Christmas with some goodwill from audiences in the UK and US. Fans were definitely more eager to go thanks to what they heard about this film. Word of mouth still plays the biggest part in a film's success, so word of mouth was quite good with this film thanks to its early releases in different regions. December also, there was only 2 blockbusters Aquaman actually had to deal with, and that's being Mary Poppins and Bumblebee. And both films cater to a different audience, perhaps not so much with Bumblebee, but it's definitely a more younger audience. This in part contributed to setting Aquaman up perfectly to dominate the box office. This is probably the most obvious point. The DCEU have managed to make so far 5 films before Aquaman. 4 of them have been received mostly negatively by audiences and critics, Wonder Woman being the only exception, which was widely praised, and until Aquaman was the best grossing film in the DCEU. Aquaman in my opinion is not great, but it's not bad. It sits in the middle really. I liked a lot of it, but there is definitely room for improvement. But at least the film has a clear vision of what it wants to be, and it's helped by excellent performances from Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. Too many times you hear about a DCEU film and hear it's bad, and this affects it massively. But if you hear, oh, Aquaman, yeah, it's actually a good DC film, I imagine that interest within the film builds a lot with people, and they think, do you know what, maybe I will give it a go. Aquaman, as I previously mentioned, is helped so much by not referencing the wider universe. The DC films are so bogged down by shoehorning in references to rush building this universe that DC have actually delayed it massively and had to go back to basics with this film. If the reference wasn't there to Steppenwolf, I actually think this film could have come before Justice League and narratively made a lot of sense going into Justice League, although there maybe would have had to been some minor changes. People though want to see good films. Word of mouth, like I said, can kill or make a film, and the good word of mouth has helped this film become successful. And it's definitely a lesson for DC not to shoehorn in references and have a clear vision for every film they make, and if it's good, people will go to see it. This remains to be seen. Whilst this big success is a huge win for DC, they can't forget that the film that preceded Aquaman, Justice League, was a massive financial disaster. Some big choices will now need to be made by DC and Warner Brothers for future films, and hopefully they will take the lessons learned from Aquaman and make their films have a clear vision and try to be different and engage with audiences. Clearly, the biggest takeaway, I think, is the film isn't bad and audiences want to see good films. Batman vs Superman should have made $1 billion, but because it had bad word of mouth, it didn't do so well. All this remains to be seen, and not to brag, but I did make a video on how Aquaman will shape the future of the DCEU, and I think I am partly right that this film will have huge ripple effects on the subsequent DCEU films. But the future remains to be seen, but it definitely looks a little brighter for DC. Thanks for watching.